year when everything is perfect. I am lucky to be joined here by Robin, who is a lifelong learner and lover of elementary mathematics. Currently, Robin is a math teacher on special assignment in the San Mateo-Foster City School District in California. So Robin, thank you so much for joining us, and please let us know what you need throughout our time together. My name's Jamie. I will be monitoring your chat. So our participants, as questions come up, please feel free to put those in the chat. And with that, Robin, go ahead and take it away.
All right, thank you, and good morning, everybody, or at least good morning in California. Maybe good afternoon to some of you. To get us started, I wanted to just get a sense of what drew you to this session. So the title, Next Year When Everything is Perfect, just curious if you could drop in the chat what resonated for you with that and what drew you to this session. And Jamie, I thought there they go, definitely the title. Mary, only if you're willing. I don't mean to put anybody on the spot here, but if you're willing and you would like to come off mute and say a word or two about what the title said to you, how it spoke.
I keep waiting for things to be perfect, and I'm hoping it will be next year.
Of course, next year, right? Everything will be perfect. Well, I hate to break it to you, but my new take on this is actually next year, everything probably won't be perfect, but we can anticipate that it might be a whole lot better. And that is going to be the running theme of this presentation. So with that idea, we're going to get started. And I want to take you back about, oh gosh, maybe 12 years. If I can move through my slide deck, there we go. I want to take you back to when I was working as the math coordinator in a neighboring district. And on the first day of school, I walked into a fourth grade classroom, and there were probably, I'm going to say, about 26 students in the room, 25 of them completely happily engaged in a writing assignment. And one girl was sitting at her computer, kind of with her head down, kind of poking away at the keys. And I was curious, so I asked the teacher what was going on, and he told me that in fourth grade, she had just arrived. The district that I was working in is Oakland, California. A lot of people speak Spanish there, teachers and students alike. But this girl had just arrived from Thailand, and nobody in the room spoke her language. And she was quiet because, one, she didn't speak English, nobody spoke Thai. And the teacher told me that he was pretty sure she had no formal education because everything that he tried, she just sat with her eyes down. And he had finally found something on the computer that at least she was engaging with. So I walked over to see what it was, and she was, no lie, no judgment, but she was playing tic-tac-toe on her first day of school in the United States in the fourth grade. And it just made me sad. I didn't understand why that would be a meaningful activity for her. So I took a risk, and with the teacher's permission, I pulled up ST Math. And I want to show you the puzzle that I pulled up for her. Maybe some of you are familiar with it, but I pulled this up, and, of course, we didn't have any language communication, but she could see that I was offering her something, and immediately she perked up. And before I tell you the rest of the story, just again, if anybody's willing to come off mute, maybe you've seen this puzzle, maybe you haven't, but what do you think is going on here? And what do you think the mathematics of this puzzle might be?
Looks like fractions.
Okay. Would you mind saying a little bit more?
Sure. So I see the balloon platform thing, and I see 6, maybe sixths. And so I would think on the 1, maybe.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I wish I could see who is talking. I can't see your faces, but thank you so much. In fact, this is a fourth grade fractions puzzle, and I'm just going to play it for a minute so you guys can see what was going on the screen. True confession, this is not the child I'm talking about. This is me playing the game, but I wanted to give you a sense of what's happening here. So here we go. at risk of overkill, but we all love JiJi and we all love a good ST math puzzle, so we'll watch to the end. All right, so with that, this is the puzzle that I pulled up for the child, and she immediately perked up. She was able to just zip right through it. If I remember right, she went through several levels before I left the room. And not only did this show us that she had some mathematics under her belt, she understood a thing or two, very likely had some formal schooling, but it really unlocked both for her and for the teacher, again, on her first day of US school, it allowed us all to see that here's a child who understands a whole lot more than she was able to express with words. And it really, in this case, it really changed her experience. Through this puzzle, we learned a lot about this student on her first day of school, and it was a really successful story, but it could have had a very different outcome. And I bring this up because ST math, I mean, it does all kinds of things for kids, but in particular, in this instance, it showed me what, like that core belief that I hold and my colleagues who I work with hold, that our children come to school with all kinds of knowledge. And through this program, we're able to immerse them in something that they get to do the sense making, they get to do the problem solving, and they can actually see themselves as learners and jump in. And that felt really important to me. So I'm gonna move on. Fast forward a few years, and I'm over here in a new school district now. In 2019, I came to San Mateo-Foster City. And our primary tenets that we work under in San Mateo-Foster City are, we want our students taking risks, we want them working persistently, and we want them communicating productively in mathematics. These tenets also live within our mission and vision for mathematics. And I wanted to just give you a minute to read that mission and vision, kind of setting the groundwork here. So I'll be quiet for a few seconds. All right. So just going back for a minute to the piece, kind of connecting this to the piece about students who are learning English, and really all students, where there's math anxiety, or where there's whatever reason why students aren't participating in mathematics. For me, entering a new district, it felt really important to bring the program over. I do want to name that the program, San Mateo-Foster City was using ST Math before I got here, so I'm not the original person that brought it over, but this is going to be my story and my journey with ST Math. So one of the things that hit me, I'm going to move down to the demographics slide and just give you, actually, before I tell you what hit me, I want to give you a second to look at this. And if you could pop in the chat anything that you notice or anything that stands out to you with these demographics slide. This is just a snapshot of our district. If anybody's willing to come off mute, is there anything that stands out to you? Anything you're noticing here? Anything that feels important?
Half of the students are not English first language users.
Thank you. And I think you're looking at this band here with, we can see Filipino and Hispanic or Latinx students.
Robin, can you see the chat, or do you want me to share out what's in the chat?
Oh, if you could share out, that would be great. I keep pulling it down and not being able to see. So yeah, anything. Yeah, please do.
So a diverse group of students is coming up. A large number of SED students, just a large district in general.
Great. I believe we're the largest district on the San Francisco Peninsula. All right, well, I want to zoom in. It sounds like you all have noticed pretty much, whoops, the same thing that I have. But we can see on here that just over half of our students are considered English only, meaning they entered school with what is considered English proficiency. And that also means that just under half are or have been English learners. It is also, when I came to the district 4 years ago, it was the district in California the entire state with the biggest discrepancy between white and Asian students and Latinx students. And so that was a gap. That's a discrepancy that we were really determined to work on, moving everybody toward that sphere of success, but especially trying to, really interrogating why we had that gap. So all of this to say, enter ST Math eventually, but let me keep going. A little bit more kind of stage setting, just some more data. You're going to be learning in a few minutes about a program, kind of our intensive and intentional support program called Math Boost. This data that I'm showing you now comes from our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students who were able to participate in the Math Boost program, who were categorized or classified as English learners. And what really struck us when we started looking at this data, and I'm sure you all can see it too, is that among our English learner population, when we look at the children who are considered to have well-developed language, all but 7 of them either exceeded or nearly met the standards on last year's state testing in mathematics. And then if we jump down to the bottom, we can see that just the opposite is true with the students who have either somewhat or minimally developed language skills. All but 7 of those students did not meet the standards. So this big chunk over here. So again, just really setting the stage for, we know our kids have knowledge, we know they have understanding, and what can we do to help them engage in math class so that those math skills can really develop. And while I'm focusing here on state testing scores, I hope that we can all share the belief and the understanding that that's not everything. That's a data point. But we really want our students to be able to engage. We want them to be thinkers and sense makers and problem solvers. The state data, of course, that's a goal as well. But I just want to name that it's not the only thing. And then also hold on to this, I've said it before, but the knowledge and the belief that our students know and can do a whole lot more than these results are showing us. So how do we help them get to a point where they can show us, even on these state tests and on other, data points, what they do know and what they can do? And I'm going to say again, ST Math is a great tool for this because along with other things, success and access to ST Math do not hinge on language ability. So moving on. We've got more data. Really setting the groundwork here. So this is a study, this is a little bit of, it's a bit old. This study came out, I believe, in 2016 or 2017. And it just is showing, I'll let y'all look at it, but just showing the impact that ST Math has had on the districts that were studied. And this particular study I like a lot because it was put out by an independent source. This was created and the infographic was done by WestEd. And I'll let you just take a peek for a minute. And I'm going to zoom in on the graphic in the middle. And again, transparency. Last night, I received an updated version of this data. So the initial slide you are looking at is a little bit older. The piece we're looking at now is very similar, but a more recent study. And it is showing growth among students who used ST Math juxtaposed with students who did not use ST Math. And so you can see there's quite a big discrepancy there, showing the orange line that ST Math seems to really make a difference, not only on students' understanding and ability to understand the math, but also on how they perform on the test scores. All right, so I think we're ready to move on. Okay. So we have, as we've seen, we have a large population of multilingual learners or English language learners in our district. And one of the things that my colleagues and I like to think about is, what are the language demands for our students? And we appreciate and like this framework where we think about 3 levels of language. We think about language to access rigor. And with that, we're really talking about just that nod to not lowering the grade level content based on language ability. And I think, it's a mistake that can easily be made if you don't know better, to believe that because a student can't communicate, like the Thai story that I shared at the beginning, that the child doesn't know the math. So we like to operate on the premise that language to access rigor or grade level content is one level. But we also have this level of language. Now I can't see my screen because Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I know what it says. This next level of language to express your mathematical thinking. So meaning that when students are doing something mathematical and they have their aha moments, their language might not sound perfect. It might not even sound really academic, but if they can communicate their mathematical thinking, that's huge, because it means that they're making sense of something and they're doing the best the way they know how to. And we want to give them ongoing opportunities to do that. And at this level, we're really not thinking about how can we correct language. We're thinking about how can we create rich enough opportunities to do the math and to help them come up with ways to talk about the math that they're doing. And then the third level, and this is where I really think that ST Math just shines so brightly, is language to access the content. You know, how many times are kids trying to do a word problem and they just have no idea what the problem is that they're trying to solve? They might see numbers and try and do something, or they might just guess, or maybe they'll try really hard to understand it. We don't know. But this notion of accessing the content, ST Math just opens that up beautifully through conceptual, visual representation, and it really does bypass the need for the formal English language as a hinge. So say no more. Okay, now we're going to move into our district's experience again since 2019, because they were using ST Math in the middle schools before I came over, but my story begins when I arrived. So I want to talk about the three different ways, the three big ways that we're using ST Math in our district. One, and maybe the first way we began, was as a supplement to our core curriculum. And one of the things that we do like to point out is this is not a supplant. This is not an instead of your core curriculum, but in our district, we use Zern Math, and we believe that ST Math is just a gorgeous supplement to that program. And the two together make a really robust and solid math program for our kids. So in school. We also ask students to do ST Math at home. And that may be in the home with their family or who they live with. It also might mean in the after school programs. And then third is our kind of intensive and intentional support program. I mentioned earlier the Math Boost. Those are the three kind of big arenas, and I'm going to go into each of those now. So here we go. That notion of next year when everything is perfect, and we know it will never be perfect, but we're on that pathway. So I wanted to share kind of our classroom usage and implementation, and it definitely was a rough start. So for the first year that I was in the district, we had ST Math at 5 of our 18 elementary schools. And it was with mixed support. I supported 2 of the schools. I had a colleague who supported 3 of the schools. And there were just a lot of demands and a lot of things going on. And there was real mixed support and mixed reviews. And then the pandemic hit. And Mind Research, as hopefully you all know, and if you don't, let me shout it because such a big deal. Mind Research made ST Math free and available to every single child who was on distance learning. And I don't know, I've worked with a lot of curriculum companies and even nonprofits, and that to me was just remarkable and such a gift to our children. But with that came another bit of a bumpy situation where kids had access and they might see the cute penguin on their sign-in platform and click on it and play, but teachers not so much. You know, it was that time when, how do we roll something out? How do we make sure teachers know what they're doing with it? And so it was really a little bit of a kind of a chaotic period. I would get phone calls from parents and sometimes from kids and sometimes from teachers asking for help. And in a lot of situations, the kids were just playing and teachers may or may not have even been aware of it. But that was how we got started. And then as we returned to in-class learning, we were able to continue the licenses at some of our schools, again, not all of them. And we brought some virtual trainings in, which was good. But one of the things we learned was without kind of that buy-in process and without the demand coming from the classroom, it was hard to get teachers on. Pandemic, virtual setting, you know, sign in on this Zoom and maybe have your camera on, maybe don't. It was hard. And where we had direct touch with teachers, it was a lot easier because we could work with teachers and let them kind of gain an understanding of how ST Math could help, but we didn't have a lot of access in the beginning. little by little, we held an all admin training at one point, and that made a difference because once principals began to see the value of the program, they were able to kind of manage out at their sites and look for specific support for teachers. And little by little, we were able to increase the interest, increase the usage, and increase the support. And then we got a new superintendent. And our new superintendent came in with a really clear vision for ST Math and a much more robust math team. We were able to more than double in size this past year. We now have a math TOSA, teacher on special assignment, at every elementary site. And we have community resource specialists who are supporting the ST Math effort, which I'll get to that in just a second. And really from the mouth of the superintendent, there is an expectation that every student will get their 60 to 90 minutes a week of ST Math. And I don't know, that felt kind of unprecedented to me. Like a powerful opportunity to really move forward and get this program that's so good for kids out to kids. I meant to eliminate that last bullet because it's not entirely accurate, but we have added on the SST, the student study team process, which is kind of the initiation of getting services for specific children. One of the first questions that is now asked at all of our elementary sites is the child getting their 60 to 90 minutes of ST Math each week? And if the answer is no, step one is let's pick up the minutes, because we now know that regardless of whether you're in general ed, special ed, your language level and proficiency, ST Math can really help with the conceptual understanding and getting kids involved in doing math. So it is a priority for our district. I want to talk for a minute about these community resource specialists. This was a team that was hired specifically in the beginning to monitor ST Math. So they were looking at the data, they were looking at minutes, they were looking at puzzles, and there's a term that ST Math uses called the velocity, which is the ratio between how many minutes kids are spending and how many puzzles they're completing. And these resource specialists at least 5 of our schools were monitoring very closely on a daily basis. And when kids were not making the mark, they were making phone calls to the family, and not gotcha kind of phone calls, but phone calls along the lines of, what do you need? How can we help you? Do you need some kind of training? Do you need internet? Do you need a hotspot? And the district purchased hundreds of hotspots. We were able to provide one-to-one devices for every child, and any household that did not have access to internet, one of the community resource specialists would personally go to the house, deliver the hotspot, and set up the internet. So just this really lovely effort to say, this is a program that matters. There's an equity issue if it's only the quick finishers in school that get to do ST Math. We want to make sure that everybody can do it. So that is how our district is working toward this 100% usage. The other piece is district-wide expectations. Our math department, again, we have somebody at every school, and the way we've been coaching into this is we're asking teachers at the beginning of the year to spend about a month and a half really deliberately teaching and giving kids time on ST Math, maybe, 1, 2, 3, up to 5 times a week. I think our ideal was 3 times a week. Spend a good chunk of time doing ST Math and really teach the kids how to be independent learners with the program. And we had different tools that we would share with teachers, like facilitation questions, really trying to get teachers to understand your job is not to teach to ST Math. That actually interferes with the process. Your job is to ask the students probing questions to get them interacting in more productive and deeper ways with the program. And that piece about asking adults to step back and not help children do the math, that's a really hard one. So that was kind of our focus at the beginning of the year. And I'll share in a little bit the facilitation questions that we use. But we really like to hone in on questions like, what do you notice? What do you wonder? What do you think it wants you to do? Like, what would happen if you tried that? So really probing questions and just back away from helping them understand what the mathematics is. Because if we interfere, we're interfering with that. PJ, you have to help me out here. What's the cycle called?
The problem-solving process.
The problem-solving
Yes.
process and perception action cycle. Yeah.
That's what I want them. Yeah. So we want the kids observing. We want them making some predictions. We don't want them to try something, and we want them to notice what the screen is telling them, because that's where, like all of the brain research says, that's where the learning is going to happen. So let's move on. Okay, this is just a sampling of what we did toward the beginning of the year while teachers were still doing ST Math in the classroom. And I didn't finish that line of thought. The next piece is roundabout that we have a break in October, and our push was come October break, we want ST Math to move to the home arena. And that might be in the after school programs, or it might be at your house. But really thinking about start strong, really teach the kids how to use ST Math productively, and then push it to home. So that, like, my nerdy dream is the only math homework in the primary grades would be get your 90 minutes of ST Math in. And for me, that would be perfect homework. But this is how I supported my schools. I was able to meet with the whole staff at a staff meeting and let them talk to each other, because my personal premise is teachers are the experts. They know their kids, they know their classroom. My job has never been and never will be to fix anybody, but I can facilitate things so that teachers are better equipped to do the job and to be the professionals that they are. So my way of supporting them in ST Math is to let them talk to each other, share experiences, and just get them kind of in that same mode, give them some probing questions so that they can think more deeply about ST Math. And then the other piece is this protocol that we came up with of, again, in my dream world, every teacher is doing this for 5 to 10 minutes on Monday morning, or maybe on Wednesday afternoon during collaboration. But the idea is there's really solid data in ST Math. And so the idea of this protocol is to give teachers just some real quick data points that they can look at, particularly that minutes to puzzle ratio, the velocity and the alerts that may or may not come up. And then I like to ask teachers to pick 1 to 3 students each week, because more than that can be overwhelming. But this allows us to kind of focus in and go, okay, here's my 3 students this week. I'm going to be sure and watch them either when they're playing ST Math or check in with them and talk to them about how it's going at home. Because even if they're doing it as homework, it's still part of our core program. Yeah, so that's the protocol. Now I want to give you a chance. So I'm talking a whole lot about what we're doing, but I want you guys to see, because obviously kids are way better teachers than I am. So this is a young man named Angel, and he was actually doing ST Math in his classroom, because in this particular class, while the expectation is to do most of it at home, on Wednesdays, they spend a half hour doing ST Math in class. So I walked in and I just was intrigued because he was playing. So I want to share with you and give you guys a sense of what it looks like when kids are using the program and when they've developed that sense of being independent learners with the program. So here we go. And Jamie, I'm just going to lean on you a little bit to make sure the sound comes through. Oh, hang on. One thing I forgot to clarify. He's speaking in English, so that shouldn't be an issue. There is one point, I'm going to give you a little spoiler, where he's telling me how he solved something. And he says, I have to check my notes here, but he says 200 plus, and he almost says plus 100, but then he says 200 plus 10 equals, no, he says 200 times 10 equals 300. Okay. And I point that out because earlier on, I talked about how when kids begin explaining things, when they develop the language to explain their disciplinary thinking, it might not be perfect. It might not be academic language at all, and it might have some mistakes, like you'll hear in this case. My hunch is when he says 200 times 10, and this will make sense after you watch him, I think what he was trying to say was 200 plus 10 times 10. That's my hunch. And I may be wrong. He also might be surfacing a really important misconception. He may have some confusion around adding versus multiplying. So all of that is stuff to pay attention to in this incredible program. Gives us the opportunity to see kids this way. So here we go. Meet Angel.
Giving me a challenge.
Oh, tell me more.
I think it's gonna make my penguins go away. Oh, penguins stay.
Oh.
200. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
What do you think it wants you to do?
I got you.
Tell me what you're doing.
Reading you.
Mm-hmm.
of 200, that's 10, that's 200, 300, and 312. Yeah, I'm gonna use my penguin. I'm gonna use the penguin. Penguin, JiJi.
What did you notice?
That was 311.
Oh, can you try that then? Is that what you want to try next? How did you know it was 311?
Right? Because it's showing you 310 and one more plus 1. 111.
Let's see if it works.
Time to go.
So Angel, two things happened there. Can you tell me how you got help to figure out that the answer was 311 to get JiJi across the screen?
What I did is I counted it all. So the 100 was 200, and then there was 10 of the 10s, but there was 11. So I did. So when 200 plus times 10 equals 300. 300 plus 10 plus 1 equals 311.
Okay, thank you. You can try another one? Are you? All right. So I'm going to pause there and just ask for any reflections. What did you notice? What stands out to you? And I'll invite you to come off mute if you would like to participate.
I think you gave him time, even though the language might not have been correct. You gave him time to think, which just encouraged him, and it was a safe place for him.
Thank you.
Someone in the chat said his enthusiasm, excuse me, whoever was talking, you can go back to talking.
No, that was me. I had pulled the chat down. Please keep reading.
Someone else
What-
said active sense making and working through the trials.
Yeah, thanks. So one of the things that I really wanted to highlight with this video clip is Angel is really making use of, whoops. There we go. He's really making use of some of the supports that are built into ST Math. The first thing that he does, I don't think you could see it super clearly, but he clicks on the little caret up here at the top of the screen. And for anyone who doesn't know, that brings down a little cheat sheet. And because of that intensive support at the beginning of the year, he knew that help was available to him. So he pulled it down. This is what he read. And he had that moment of, oh, and then he went in and he was able to be successful with the rest of the puzzle. I want to show you another thing that he used that wasn't in the video, but another thing that we often teach kids is they can freeze the frame. So if they're doing a puzzle and they're confused, if you double click on the screen, it freezes and you get these controls up here and you can fast forward, you can watch the animation. And so that's something that has been helpful to kids. I'm going to move a little bit quicker now because time is of
Robin,
essence.
there were a couple questions in the chat, and I see you're moving on to talking about it in the after school arena and at home. And so I'm sure you're getting to it. But there was also just a couple of questions about like what does the student data look like when they're doing it at home, and just how you've kind of like combated that equity issue of assigning it as homework. For students who have different home situations. So if you, as you're going through, want to touch on that too, that would be wonderful.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I mentioned that equity issue, and I think where that's coming from is in a number of classrooms, we see that in with all of this, I hope that nothing I say sounds disrespectful, because with the deepest respect for teachers and knowing that the intention is to give kids what they need, and all of these pieces are conversation starters. But what we have seen in a number of classrooms is kids who finish their ZERN, their core curriculum, their adopted text, are allowed to go on to ST Math. And it can do a couple of things. One, it can get kids to race through the piece that feels hard to them so that they can do what feels fun. But it also means that kids who are struggling in their adopted textbook are not having access to ST Math. And we saw a lot of data that suggested the kids who were really accelerating, who tended to score well, who tended to be within the sphere of success in math, were also having high numbers, high levels of minutes. And kids who were outside the sphere of success were not getting the minutes. And that was, of course, a big equity concern. And that's part of why we brought people in to monitor the minutes, whether they're in school or at home. So we have math TOSAs, oftentimes teachers, and now we have our community resource specialists who are looking and just noticing our kids getting those 60 minutes. And I believe there are ways, now I'm mixing up my two data platforms, I believe you can see the time that they're going on. PJ, am I right about that? It gives a timestamp, right?
Yeah, you can see when they last logged in, for how long they logged in for, and then what they accomplished. So in terms of like puzzles and things like that.
Right. So we're looking at all of that, and we're, as we're able, we're sharing it with teachers. And again, the resource specialists are talking to families, and then teachers who are using that data protocol can look, and if they see a student with low minutes or low usage, that would be a child that they check in with this week. So even if we're asking them to do it at home, we're paying attention to the minutes, and the kids know that. But going into the home arena, I think this is all connected. There was a lot of frustration early in the year because we have 3 major after-school programs. It's Homework Central, Annex, and Boys and Girls Club. And the adults tended not to be credentialed teachers, and they were really struggling with how to support kids. And kids would come, either with homework or work that they hadn't finished in school, and there would be frustration around how to help them. So we were able to get into conversation and then hold formal trainings for the tutors and the adults in the room in all 3 of our programs, and then ask them to support ST Math wholeheartedly. The adopted curriculum is a little harder because it's real specific to the kind of learning that's happening in the classroom. But with ST Math, we were able to teach them the facilitation questions, ask them to not help with the math, but ask questions that get the kids interacting the way Angel did. And it's been really successful. So for all 3 of our after school programs, the first 15 or 20 minutes every single day, kids sit down with their computers and play ST Math. And now the tutors know how to support it. They know where to go, what to do, and who to call if they get stuck. And that's been really helpful. We've also similarly held, in the past year and a half, I've personally been involved in 10 parent engagements through our English Learner Advisory Committees, our district level English Learner Advisory Committee, and then coffee chats at school. I've been able to kind of train up parents on how can you, one, we let them play ST Math so they get a sense for what it is and how it works, and then teaching them how they can support their children. And that's been real successful. And we've definitely noticed increased usage after parents participate in that. And tell me if I'm not answering the questions, but trying my best. This is just a piece of what we offer kids, really honing in on that predict, notice, analyze, and connect cycle that PJ has a better word for, but we'll just go with that. And helping, because parents, when they come to these sessions, they get to play. And so we model for them what we want them to do with their kids. And then here, I actually realized I put these in Spanish, but these are on the ST Math platform. You can look for the facilitation questions. And I just love these. And parents can hold this in their hand like a little bookmark, or they can print it out for kids. And the questions, for anyone who can't read that, are things like, in step 1, what have you tried? What happened when you did that? Why'd you try that? Or questions that are closer related to the kind of making predictions and analyzing what happened in the animation. What did you notice? What were you wondering? What else? What happened when you clicked on whatever? So just really questions to probe the kids' thinking. And every time we meet with after school providers or parents, I hand them these as little bookmarks. They're like little, 3x7, and you can laminate them, and everybody walks home with one. And these 2 sets of questions are back to back. So that's been helpful. All right, Math Boost program. We have so little time left. We do a common formative assessment across our district. And we begin we have two purposes for that. Primarily, it's really to build this formative assessment muscle, but we also look at who are the kids who are outside the, performance sphere of success. Who are the kids who are performing in the lowest quartile on that common formative assessment? And we give teachers a list with the names of all of those students. And we do this centrally so that teachers have, they have their list and that's their initial triage. Then we ask teachers and principals to look at that and think about the kids and make some decisions around who are the kids who would probably most benefit from this intensive and intentional support, which is a 1 hour a day, 3 days a week after school. And it lasts for 6 weeks. What I want to highlight here is all of the students who were selected to participate in Math Boost, which was right around 375, I believe, our first year. All of them, I think it's fair to say, we would have predicted that they would perform poorly on state tests if we didn't interrupt the course, right? Because these are the kids who are doing poorly on the common formative. I'm going to show you some data and then I'm going to come back to this slide. So this was the outcome of our first round of Math Boost, where ST Math was kind of the core component. It wasn't the only thing, but it was definitely the core component of the Math Boost program. And we were actually, of course, all of these kids down here at the bottom hurt. We don't like to see that, but we were so excited to see that 38 out of the 313, 38 of our students actually met or exceeded the standards on the state testing last year. So after they got 2 rounds of Boost, so 2 6-week sessions of Boost, and these were their results. 97 of them nearly met the standards in math. So what does that make? Somebody else better do the math here. Let's see, that's 100, about 135 out of 313 students who were predicted to fall in the lowest quartile, not meeting standards, actually either came close or did meet or exceed the standards. So that felt really exciting to us. And when we think about like the rocky road to get where we are, that was pretty exciting. I want to go back to the previous slide just to say, we didn't have a lot of time. It was all very quick. We're definitely learning on the go, but with PJ's support and the support of ST Math, we ended up building a curriculum that was built on not just the digital components, but we also used puzzle talks and we used games and activities from the summer immersion program that are tabletop types, like pencil and paper types activities. And I'm going to get into showing you a little bit. I think the slides are shared with you. So if anybody would like to see our design of Boost, this is the calendar that we created. Day 2 is actually not an ST Math activity. That was building fraction kits. Everything else on here, including the pre and post test, all come from ST Math. So you can look at that in the deck if you would like. This is, we had somebody from Mind Research come and train up our teachers and teach us about puzzle talks. And I forgot to mention, it's really hard to get teachers to commit, even if you pay them really well, to commit to an after school program. Like, we work too hard. People are tired. And many of our Boost teachers were not credentialed teachers. I mean, literally, we had PE teachers, we had school admin assistants, like front desk people. We had a lot of special ed paras came and helped. A lot of people stepped in because they wanted to do right by kids. And we had a lot of we had to teach people how to run this program. So this was our attempt at supporting them there. And okay, so now we're going to meet another child who was I got to teach Math Boost the first year. I was one of the credentialed teachers. But we're going to meet a child named Zoe who's working on this puzzle. And you're going to get to watch her at the end of her first 6-week Boost program. She's going to talk about this particular puzzle. So here we go again. What do you think the mathematics is? And what do you think JiJi wants us to do? And you can put it in the chat. And Jamie, if you wouldn't mind reading it, or you can come off mute and talk. Any thoughts of what the math might be?
Someone says count boxes.
Count what?
Count the boxes.
Okay. So what might we think the answer would be here?
Someone else says subtraction, subtraction.
Hmm.
Someone says 3.
Okay, would one of the people that either said subtraction or 3, would you mind coming off mute and explaining what you're thinking?
So I was thinking that because there's 2 that are underneath the ground, so
Mhm.
you're gonna take 2 away to get 3.
Okay, so the idea would be that over here, this is a screenshot, so it's not activated, but over here we would pick 3.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's take a look. I'm actually going to ask Jamie to drop in the chat a transcript of what you're about to watch, because the girl who you're going to see next is speaking in Spanish. This is a dual immersion school. So many of the kids, including the child who's talking, are learning Spanish, and math is actually taught in Spanish. So that for whatever that's worth. But go ahead, if you wouldn't mind clicking on the link and just read through the text so that you know what she's saying, and then we'll watch her do it and show us.
And Robin, we are coming to the end of our time here. So
Okay.
I know.
Oh, well.
Are there any like parting words for us, or if there are questions out there? We don't have any other questions in the chat. And I hate to cut you off because there's so much to see, but will you give us a little preview maybe just quickly of what happens and give us a couple parting words as well?
Yeah, okay, Dawn. The last video was a teacher who is not a credentialed teacher talking about the process and how she saw the kids developing as problem solvers. And her point was, even though they were kind of flat on their pre and post assessments, she saw all kinds of growth in their ability to participate, in their willingness to raise a hand or start talking, and felt like ST Math really set them up to do some deep mathematical thinking. And she talks about how teachers have told her that they see a difference in the kids after Math Boost. And then this video that I was hoping to watch, you can watch, if you look at the slides, you can listen to the video of the teacher. I gave access to that one, but you don't get to watch Zoe, unfortunately. But what she says is she's really excited. We're not going to show it, right? Just talk about it.
I think we're out of time. Our next session will start in a few minutes. So
okay.
I know you can.
So yeah, she just gets excited about how she made some mistakes, and then she figured out that she could do this, and she realized that it was a -2 kind of situation. Yeah, so I'm sorry.
No, Robin, this was so incredibly impactful. It was so, I really appreciated your honesty, especially about the things that didn't go so well at first, and really how it seemed like you all were so intentional about your next steps with students and wrapping around them.
I'll leave somebody's journal. This was at the end of Math Boost. There were just a bunch of different journal entries in there. So yeah. Thank you all for being here and for participating and coming off mute and sharing. Great job. Appreciate you all.